My sisters, hear me today. Prayer is not a ritual. It is not a religious duty. It is the most powerful, life-altering connection you have with the creator of the universe. When a woman prays, she moves heaven. When a woman prays, she shakes the earth. But hear this, your prayers must have structure, power, and persistence. They must be habits that shape your daily life. The first habit is this: prayer must be your priority. Just as you eat daily, just as you breathe without effort, prayer must be the foundation of your life. A woman who prays once in a while is like a woman who eats once in a while, weak, vulnerable, and ineffective. But a woman who prays daily, she becomes a force that no demon, no trial, no storm can overcome. And hear this: your prayers must be rooted in the Word of God. Too many women pray weak prayers because they do not pray the Word. If you want authority in prayer, you must know what God has already spoken. Stop crying about the problem and start declaring the solution found in His Word. Gratitude must be your posture. Some of you are praying, but you're praying from a place of fear, anxiety, and desperation. That is not the posture of a kingdom woman. A kingdom woman prays with thanksgiving, knowing that God is already moving on her behalf. Before you ask, thank Him. Before you see it, praise Him. A woman who prays in gratitude confuses the enemy, because while he tries to bring destruction, she is already dancing in victory. Now listen, your words create worlds. Do you know what you have been declaring? Some of you are sabotaging your own prayers by what you speak after you say amen. You pray for provision, then say, I'll never get out of this debt. You pray for healing, then say, I'll always struggle with this illness. No, speak life. Declare God's promises. Align your words with His Word, and you will see transformation. And prayer is not just about you. Some of the greatest breakthroughs you will ever experience will come when you intercede for someone else. The Bible says that Job's life was restored when he prayed for his friends. Some of you are waiting for your answer, but your answer is in your willingness to stand in the gap for others. But prayer is not just speaking, it is listening. Some of you are praying, but you're not listening. You rush in, pour out your complaints, and leave without waiting for God's response. What kind of conversation is that? If you want to hear God, you must sit in silence and allow Him to speak. He has wisdom for you. He has answers for you. But you must create space for His voice. Prayer must be followed by faith and obedience. A woman who prays but does not act in faith is like a farmer who plants seeds but never waters them. If you believe what you pray, then walk like it. If you trust God's answer, then move in alignment with it. Stop asking for direction while refusing to take the steps He already showed you. Prayer is not an option for a woman who desires to walk in power and purpose. It is a necessity. Just as the body cannot function without oxygen, the spirit cannot thrive without consistent communion with God. Daily prayer is not reserved for moments of crisis or times of desperation. It is the foundation of a life rooted in divine wisdom and strength. A woman who prioritizes prayer refuses to let the distractions of life dictate her relationship with God. She understands that before she interacts with the world, she must first interact with heaven. Making prayer a daily priority requires intentionality. It is not something that happens by chance. It must be scheduled, valued, and guarded. Many women find time for social media conversations and entertainment, but they struggle to set aside time for prayer. The truth is, what is truly important will always find its place in the day. A woman who makes prayer her priority does not wait for a convenient moment. She creates one. She wakes up before the demands of life pull her in every direction. She steals away in the quiet moments of the day to realign her heart with God's will. Daily prayer transforms a woman's perspective. When she begins her day in prayer, she does not react to life's challenges with fear or frustration. She moves with confidence, knowing she has already surrendered her steps to God. The weight of anxiety and uncertainty is lifted because she has cast her cares upon the one who holds all things together. Prioritizing daily prayer builds an unshakable faith, a spirit of discernment, and a peace that cannot be disrupted. It is not just a habit. It is the lifeline that empowers her to walk in victory no matter what comes her way. Prioritizing daily prayer is the key to living a life of clarity, strength, and divine direction. It is not just an activity to fit into a busy schedule. It is the foundation upon which everything else is built. A woman who truly understands the power of prayer knows that it must come before all else. Before the chaos of the day begins, before decisions are made, before the pressures of life take over, she must first connect with her Creator. Prayer is not just about asking for things, it is about alignment. It is about positioning the heart and mind to receive instruction, wisdom, and peace from God. Making prayer a daily priority requires discipline and intentionality. Many people say they do not have time to pray, but the truth is time is made for what is valued. A woman who prioritizes prayer does not wait for a perfect moment, she creates one. She rises early or carves out time in the stillness of the evening. She recognizes that just as her body needs nourishment every day, her spirit must be fed daily through prayer. She does not allow distractions, fatigue, or excuses to steal her time with God because she knows that without it, she will be spiritually weak, vulnerable, and easily shaken by life's challenges. When prayer becomes a priority, everything else shifts. Decisions are made with wisdom rather than impulse. Fear is replaced with faith. Confusion gives way to clarity. A woman who prays daily does not walk in uncertainty because she has already sought divine direction. The storms of life may come, but she remains unshaken because her foundation is built on her daily connection with God. Prioritizing prayer is not just a good habit, it is the lifeline that sustains, strengthens, and empowers her to walk in victory every single day. Maintaining a spirit of gratitude in prayer is a powerful posture that shifts the atmosphere of a woman's life. Gratitude is not just an emotion, it is a spiritual discipline that keeps the heart aligned with God's goodness. Too often, people approach prayer with a list of requests, focusing on what they lack rather than what they have already received. But a woman who prays with thanksgiving understands that gratitude is the key to unlocking greater blessings. She does not wait for circumstances to be perfect before she gives thanks. She thanks God in every season, knowing that His faithfulness is unchanging. Gratitude transforms the way a woman prays. Instead of coming before God with complaints, she approaches Him with praise. She thanks Him for past victories, present provisions, and future breakthroughs, even before they manifest. This kind of prayer builds faith because it acknowledges that God has already made a way. A grateful heart silences fear and doubt, making room for peace and trust. When a woman prays with gratitude, she shifts her focus from problems to promises, from burdens to blessings, from worry to worship. A spirit of gratitude does not ignore hardships, but it refuses to be controlled by them. Even in trials, a woman who maintains gratitude finds reasons to give thanks. Whether it is for strength, wisdom, or the lessons she is learning, she understands that every situation is an opportunity to see God's hand at work. Gratitude fuels perseverance, deepens faith, and attracts divine favor. A woman who prays with a thankful heart walks in joy regardless of circumstances, because she knows that gratitude is not just an act of prayer, it is a lifestyle of victory. Declaring God's promises in prayer is an act of faith that unleashes supernatural power. A woman who understands the authority of God's word does not pray timid, doubtful prayers. She speaks with confidence, knowing that heaven responds to what God has already. Too many prayers are filled with fear and uncertainty, but a woman who declares the promises of God shifts the atmosphere with boldness. She does not beg for what has already been given. She stands on His word and calls forth what He has already established. When a woman declares God's promises, she aligns her words with divine truth rather than her circumstances. She may see sickness, but she declares healing. She may feel lack, but she speaks abundance. She may face battles, but she proclaims victory. The enemy wants her to confess defeat, but she refuses because she knows that life and death are in the power of the tongue. A woman who declares God's promises does not speak based on what she sees. She speaks based on what God has said. And when she does, mountains move, doors open, and miracles manifest. The promises of God are not mere words. They are unshakable, eternal truths. They are guarantees backed by the integrity of the one who cannot lie. That is why a woman who declares his promises in prayer does not waver. She knows that when she speaks his word, she is not speaking empty wishes. She is activating heaven's power. She declares, "No weapon formed against me shall prosper." She proclaims, "My God shall supply all my needs." She decrees, "By his stripes I am healed." And as she speaks, her faith grows, her spirit strengthens, and her reality begins to shift. Declaring God's promises is not just a prayer habit, it is a weapon of victory. Interceding for others is one of the most selfless and powerful forms of prayer. A woman who intercedes understands that prayer is not just about her own needs, but about standing in the gap for others. She knows that her voice in prayer can change lives, shift situations, and break chains for those who cannot pray for themselves. Intercession is not just a religious duty, it is an act of love, a reflection of God's heart, and a demonstration of true spiritual maturity. When a woman intercedes, she carries the burdens of others before God, pleading on their behalf as if they were her own. She prays for her family, her friends, her community, and even those who have wronged her. She prays for her family, her friends, her community, and even those who have wronged her. She does not wait for people to ask for prayer. She prays because she knows that some victories are won in the secret place before they're ever seen in the natural. A woman of intercession is sensitive to the needs of those around her. She discerns spiritual battles that others may not even recognize, and she wages war in prayer to cover them in protection, strength, and breakthrough. Intercession moves heaven because it aligns with God's will. Jesus himself is our greatest intercessor, constantly praying on our behalf. When a woman chooses to intercede, she partners with Christ in his work. She does not pray small prayers. She prays with boldness, asking for healing, deliverance, restoration, and salvation for those in need. She knows that when she stands in prayer for someone else, she is sowing seeds of blessing that will not only impact their lives, but will also return as a harvest in her own. A woman who intercedes is a woman of great influence in the spiritual realm, shifting destinies through the power of prayer. Listening in prayer is just as important as speaking in prayer. Too often, prayer becomes a one-sided conversation where requests, worries, and desires are poured out before God, but no time is taken to hear his response. A woman who understands the power of listening knows that prayer is not just about talking to God. It is about receiving his wisdom, direction, and peace. She recognizes that true intimacy with God is built not only by seeking his hand, but by seeking his voice. A woman who listens in prayer approaches God with expectation. She does not rush through prayer as a routine. She waits in stillness, knowing that God speaks in many ways. Sometimes he speaks through his word, sometimes through a gentle whisper in her spirit, and sometimes through the circumstances around her. But she knows that if she never takes the time to listen, she may miss the very answer she is seeking. She disciplines herself to silence distractions, quiet her thoughts, and focus her heart so that she can hear clearly. Listening in prayer builds spiritual sensitivity. It trains a woman to recognize God's leading and to discern between his voice and the noise of the world. When she learns to listen, she avoids unnecessary struggles because she moves in obedience rather than confusion. She does not have to guess her next step. She hears it from God himself. And when she listens, she is strengthened because his voice brings comfort, reassurance, and direction. A woman who listens in prayer walks in greater wisdom. She does not just pray for answers, she receives them. She does not just ask for guidance, she follows it. And as she cultivates the habit of listening, she deepens her relationship with God, allowing his voice to shape every area of her life. Walking in faith and obedience is the ultimate expression of trust in God. A woman who prays but does not act on what she has prayed for is like a farmer who plants seeds but never waters them. Faith is not just believing, it is moving in alignment with what God has spoken. Prayer without faith, faith-filled action, is incomplete. A woman who truly trusts God does not wait for every detail to be clear before she moves. She steps forward, knowing that God will make a way. Faith is the bridge between prayer and manifestation. When a woman prays for provision, she does not sit back in doubt. She positions herself to receive. When she prays for opportunity, she prepares herself to walk through the doors God will open. When she asks for healing, she begins to speak and live as one who is healed. Faith is not passive, it is active. It requires movement, expectation, and a willingness to step into the unknown with confidence in God's promises. Obedience is the evidence of true faith. A woman who trusts God follows his instructions, even when they do not make sense. If God tells her to forgive, she forgives. If he tells her to give, she gives. If he calls her to step out of her comfort zone, she moves. Delayed obedience is disobedience, and partial obedience is still disobedience. She understands that true blessings are unlocked when she not only prays, but also follows God's leading without hesitation. A woman who walks in faith and obedience is unstoppable. She does not live by what she sees, but by what God has said. She does not shrink back in fear, but moves boldly, knowing that God is directing her steps. Her prayers are not just words. They are the foundation of a life fully surrendered to God's will. And because she walks in faith and obedience, she experiences supernatural breakthroughs, divine favor, and the fulfillment of God's promises in ways beyond her imagination. Prayer is not just a ritual. It is the very foundation of a powerful, unshakable life. A woman who prays with consistency, declares God's promises, intercedes for others, listens to his voice, and walks in faith and obedience is a woman who cannot be defeated. She is not moved by circumstances. She moves circumstances through her prayers. She does not wait for change. She becomes the change. The enemy fears a woman who knows how to pray because she understands her authority in Christ. She does not beg. She decrees. She does not doubt. She believes. She does not retreat. She advances. Every time she opens her mouth in prayer, heaven moves and the enemy trembles. She is not just a woman, she is a warrior. It is time to rise. It is time to pray with boldness, to listen with expectancy, to walk in faith, and to live in victory. When prayer becomes your lifestyle, miracles become your reality. Your family will shift. Your community will transform. Your destiny will unfold. God is waiting not just for a prayer, but for a woman who will pray without ceasing, believe without wavering, and move without fear. Will that woman be you? Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm so grateful you have joined me today, and I can't wait to dive into something that has the power to change your life. Today, I want to speak to you about something powerful, something hidden in the hearts of men that many overlook. You see, a man may not always say what he feels, but if you learn to discern his actions, you will see the truth written all over his life. A man can hide his words, but he cannot hide his nature. If he has deep feelings for you, he may not tell you outright, but he will show it in ways that speak louder than words. He will prioritize you, not because he must, but because something inside him compels him to. He will adjust his schedule, shift his plans, and even inconvenience himself, all without asking for recognition. Why? Because love, even when unspoken, is still a force that moves a man to act. He listens, not just to reply, but to understand. You may think no one remembers the little things you say, but he does. He stores your words in his heart like treasures because they matter to him. He remembers what brings you joy, what makes you cry, and what inspires you. He remembers because you are important to him. And though he tries to play it cool, his emotions betray him. When another man enters the picture, he tenses up, even if just for a moment. He may not voice his jealousy, but his eyes tell the story. He is watching, not to control you, but because his heart is invested in you. His actions They will always be the greatest proof of what he feels. He will protect you when you don't even realize you need protection. He will sacrifice in ways that may seem small, yet they speak volumes. And even in his silence, his commitment to your well-being will be evident. Sometimes he may seem nervous around you, fumbling for words or acting differently when you're near. This isn't weakness, it's proof that your presence has power over him. He may appear strong before the world, but in front of you, his walls begin to crumble. But here's something even more significant. He trusts you with his truth. He opens up to you in ways he never does with others. He speaks about his dreams, his fears, his childhood, and his failures. He shares because deep down he knows you hold a special place in his life. And the greatest sign of all, he pushes you forward. He celebrates your victories, encourages your growth, and invests in your success with no agenda. A man who loves you, even in silence, will never be a stumbling block to your destiny. He will be a stepping stone. When a man has deep feelings for you but chooses to hide them, one of the clearest signs is how he prioritizes you without any clear explanation. He may not say, "I care about you deeply," but his actions will consistently place you at the center of his life. He will adjust his schedule, change his plans, and even make sacrifices, often without drawing attention to it. You may notice that when you need help, he is the first to show up. When you have a problem, he listens with a level of attentiveness that others do not. When you casually mention something you need, he somehow finds a way to provide it without making a big deal out of it. Even when he is busy, he finds time. No matter how packed his day is, he manages to carve out moments to check on you, ensure you're okay, or simply be present in your life. If you call, he answers. If you need support, he offers it without hesitation. And he does all of this without expecting anything in return. His concern for your well-being is not driven by obligation, but by something deeper, something he may not even fully admit to himself. He prioritizes you even when it's inconvenient. There will be moments when his actions seem to make no logical sense. He may drive across town just to help you with something small. He may stay up late to talk to you when he has an early morning ahead. He may rearrange his schedule to accommodate yours, all while pretending it was never an issue. This is not just kindness. It is a sign of unspoken love. He does not need to explain why you matter. He just shows it time and time again. When a man harbors deep feelings for you but chooses to keep them hidden, one of the most revealing signs is how attentively he listens and how well he remembers even the smallest details of your conversations. While others may hear your words in passing, he absorbs them, storing them away as if they are treasures of great value. He does not just listen to respond, he listens to understand, to connect, and to learn more about you. You may not even realize it, but he picks up on things that others overlook. The way your voice changes when you're excited, the subtle shift in your tone when something bothers you, or the way you describe your dreams and aspirations. You might mention your favorite coffee order once, and weeks later he surprises you with it without asking. You could casually talk about a childhood memory, and months later he brings it up in a way that shows he has been paying attention all along. Even the things you say in frustration, the fears you confess in passing, or the goals you mention in a fleeting moment, he remembers them. And not only does he remember, but he also acts on them. He recalls your favorite songs, your favorite books, the way you like your food prepared, or the things that bring you joy and comfort. It is not about grand gestures. It is about the depth of his awareness. When you are going through a tough time, he references something you told him long ago to encourage you. When he gives you advice, it is tailored to who you are because he has been listening long enough to truly know you. He may not say what he feels outright, but his ability to remember what matters to you speaks louder than words. When a man has deep feelings for you but refuses to express them, his jealousy becomes one of the most telling signs. He will never openly admit it, but his reactions will reveal more than his words ever could. The moment another man enters the conversation, his entire demeanor shifts. His voice might remain calm, his words might sound indifferent, but there will be subtle changes in his body language, his facial expressions, and even the energy he projects. His eyes may narrow slightly, his jaw may tense for just a second, or his responses may become slightly shorter and less enthusiastic. He wants to appear unaffected, yet deep down, something within him stirs at the thought of someone else capturing your attention. You may ask casual questions about the other person, trying to gauge how much they mean to you. Who is he? How do you know him? Is he a good guy? These questions may seem innocent, but they are often laced with unspoken curiosity and concern. He may joke about the situation, make lighthearted comments, or even tease you about the person. But beneath the humor, there is a deeper emotion he is struggling to conceal. At times, his jealousy might show in the way he suddenly becomes distant. If he feels threatened, he may pull back slightly, withdrawing into himself as he tries to process his emotions without exposing them. He does not want to seem possessive, but he also cannot completely ignore the way he feels. You may notice him making an extra effort to grab your attention or subtly remind you of his presence whenever another man is around. He may not put his feelings into words, but his unspoken reactions reveal that his heart is far more invested than he lets on. When a man has deep feelings for you but chooses to keep them hidden, his actions will always reveal the truth that his words cannot. Love, even when unspoken, is a force that moves a man to act in ways that go beyond mere friendship or politeness. He may never openly declare his emotions, but the way he shows up for you, protects you, and supports you speaks volumes. When you need help, he is there without hesitation. When you feel down, he finds ways to uplift you, whether through thoughtful gestures, quiet encouragement, or simply being present when you need someone the most. He is attentive to your needs, sometimes before you even realize them yourself. If you are feeling overwhelmed, he finds a way to lighten your load. If you mention something in passing, he remembers and acts on it, ensuring that you feel heard and valued. His concern for your well-being is evident in the little things, offering his jacket when you are cold, ensuring you get home safely, or adjusting his schedule just to spend time with you. These actions are not random. They're intentional, driven by feelings he may not be ready to voice. Even in silence, his presence speaks. He stands by your side in difficult moments, showing unwavering support without seeking recognition. He notices the things that bring you joy and makes an effort to incorporate them into your life. His consistency, reliability, and willingness to make sacrifices all point to something deeper. While words can be crafted and manipulated, actions stem from the heart. A man who truly cares for you may struggle to say it, but he will always find ways to show it, proving that love, no matter how hidden, cannot be contained. When a man hides deep feelings for you, his body often betrays him before his words ever do. No matter how composed or confident he may seem around others, there is a noticeable shift in his demeanor when he is near you. His usual smoothness might disappear, replaced by nervous laughter, hesitant speech, or fidgeting hands. He may struggle to maintain eye contact for too long, or conversely stare a little too much before quickly looking away. These small yet significant signs reveal that your presence affects him in ways he cannot control. You may notice that he stumbles over his words when trying to talk to you, or overthinks his responses, afraid of saying the wrong thing. He might touch his face, run a hand through his hair, or adjust his clothing, all subconscious attempts to make himself more presentable in your presence. If he is holding something, he may fidget with it absent-mindedly, as if trying to channel his nervous energy into something else. His voice might change slightly, either becoming softer, deeper, or even cracking unexpectedly. His nervousness is not a sign of weakness, but rather an indication that he values your opinion of him. He wants to come across in the best possible way, but is also unsure of how to navigate his feelings without exposing them too clearly. Sometimes He might compensate by acting more serious or reserved, trying to mask his emotions by keeping his interactions brief and controlled. Other times, he may become overly animated, cracking more jokes or talking faster than usual. Whether he withdraws or becomes more expressive, the underlying cause remains the same. His emotions are strong, and being around you stirs something within him that he is not yet ready to admit. When a man has deep feelings for you, but keeps them hidden, one of the clearest signs is the way he opens up to you in ways he does not with others. Men are often taught to guard their emotions, to present a strong and composed exterior to the world. Yet when a man trusts you with his thoughts, his struggles, and his dreams, it is a powerful indication that you hold a special place in his life. He may not explicitly say what he feels, but his willingness to share his vulnerabilities speaks louder than any confession. You may notice that he talks to you about things he rarely discusses with anyone else. He shares childhood memories, personal fears, past failures, and future ambitions with an openness that seems almost uncharacteristic. He does not just engage in small talk. He invites you into his inner world, offering glimpses of who he truly is beyond the surface. He values your perspective, asks for your opinion on important matters, and considers your advice with genuine seriousness. There may be moments when he hesitates before speaking, as if debating whether to reveal something personal. Yet, he chooses to confide in you because he feels safe in your presence. He allows himself to be seen, flaws and all, without the fear of judgment. When he experiences a setback, you are one of the first people he reaches out to, not because he needs help, but because he finds comfort in your understanding. Even when he is not a man of many words, the depth of his conversations with you stands out. While he may keep his emotions guarded in most areas of his life, with you, there is a level of trust and openness that cannot be ignored. When a man has deep feelings for you but chooses to hide them, one of the most telling signs is his unwavering support for your growth and success. He may never openly declare his emotions, but his actions will reveal his investment in your journey. He takes notice of your ambitions, listens to your dreams, and encourages you to pursue them with confidence. He is not just present during your victories, he is actively pushing you toward them, celebrating your wins as if they were his own. He believes in you sometimes even more than you believe in yourself. When you doubt your abilities, he is the voice that reminds you of your strength. When you feel like giving up, he finds ways to inspire you, whether through words of encouragement, practical advice, or simply standing by your side when you need reassurance. He is not intimidated by your success. Instead, he finds joy in watching you grow. Rather than feeling threatened by your progress, he supports it wholeheartedly, showing that his care for you extends beyond himself. His support goes beyond words. He takes action, sending you resources, connecting you with the right people, or simply making sure you have the space and time you need to focus on your goals. He remembers your important deadlines, checks in on your progress, and offers help in whatever way he can. Even when he does not explicitly state his feelings, his consistent presence in your journey proves that he values you deeply. A man who truly cares about you wants to see you thrive. He does not hold you back or discourage you. He propels you forward. His happiness is tied to your fulfillment, and he takes pride in seeing you become the best version of yourself, even if he never says why. Love is not always spoken. It is revealed in the quiet, consistent, and intentional actions of a man who truly cares. When words fail, his priorities, his attention, his jealousy, his nervousness, his willingness to open up, his actions, and his unwavering support all speak the truth he may not yet be ready to admit. A man who hides his feelings does not do so because they are weak, but because they run deep. The question is not whether he feels something for you, but whether you recognize the signs and understand their weight. Love, when genuine, does not seek recognition or validation. It simply expresses itself in ways that cannot be ignored. Pay attention to the way he moves in your life, not just the words he does or does not say. Because in the end, love that is real will always find a way to be seen even in silence. Hello everyone, and welcome back. I am so grateful you have joined me today, and I can't wait to dive into something that has the power to change your life. A woman is not defined by her beauty, her background, or even her past mistakes. A woman is defined by the wisdom she carries, the discipline she embraces, and the purpose she pursues. True strength is not found in how loud she speaks, but in how wisely she moves. Yet there are some who sabotage their own greatness, not because they lack potential, but because they refuse to align themselves with wisdom. A foolish woman is one who consistently makes choices that bring destruction rather than elevation. She is driven by her emotions, making decisions in the moment that create regrets for a lifetime. But a wise woman understands that emotions are temporary and wisdom is eternal. She pauses, she evaluates, she discerns before she moves. A woman without wisdom disrespects authority, rejects counsel, and believes she already knows it all. She refuses correction, convinced that her way is the only way. But wisdom is found in humility. A wise woman surrounds herself with people who can challenge her, elevate her, and guide her toward her destiny. A foolish woman will chase after relationships that drain her, break her, and diminish her value. She sees the warning signs but ignores them, hoping that love will change what wisdom already revealed. A wise woman understands that she is not called to fix people, she is called to walk in her purpose. And any relationship that destroys her worth is not love, it is bondage. There is nothing more dangerous than a woman who neglects her own growth. She is entertained by distractions, but she ignores the call to develop her mind, her skills, and her character. She wastes time chasing vanity, while her destiny waits for her to wake up. A wise woman understands that knowledge is power, discipline is freedom, and growth is non-negotiable. A foolish woman is known for her gossip, for the way she speaks without wisdom, for how she tears others down instead of building them up. She thinks her words carry no weight, but in reality, they reveal her heart. A wise woman uses her words to create, to heal, to inspire. She does not waste her energy on negativity because she understands that what she speaks, she becomes. A woman without discipline in finances is a woman who will always be at the mercy of circumstances. She spends recklessly, living for the moment with no thought of the future. She desires luxury, but refuses to master stewardship. A wise woman is a builder. She multiplies what she has, she plans for tomorrow, and she never allows money to control her. She controls money. Above all, a foolish woman lacks vision. She drifts, she waits, she exists, but she does not build. She complains about her circumstances, but refuses to take ownership of her future. A wise woman moves with purpose. She is intentional about her life, her relationships, her growth, and her impact. A woman of wisdom is unstoppable. She is a force of excellence, grace, and divine purpose. She does not settle, she does not waver, and she does not allow foolishness to dictate her life. The choice is clear. Will you walk in wisdom, or will you sabotage your own destiny? The world does not need more foolish women. The world needs wise women who rise, lead, and transform generations. The decision is yours. A woman's life is shaped by the decisions she makes, and every choice sets the course for her future. A woman who lacks wisdom in decision-making often operates based on emotions rather than discernment. She is impulsive, driven by what feels good in the moment rather than what is right in the long run. She reacts instead of reflecting, moves without strategy, and later finds herself trapped in cycles of regret. When challenges arise, instead of seeking knowledge, she leans on her own limited understanding. She ignores wise counsel, convinced that her perspective is enough. She makes financial decisions without foresight, enters relationships without discernment, and engages in opportunities without counting the cost. Her life becomes a series of repeated mistakes because she does not learn from past failures. Instead of pausing to evaluate where she went wrong, she moves blindly into the next decision, hoping for a different outcome but using the same flawed approach. This pattern affects every area of her life. In relationships, she overlooks red flags, choosing temporary excitement over long-term stability. In finances, she spends recklessly, prioritizing pleasure over responsibility. In career choices, she lacks patience, making hasty moves without considering the bigger picture. She jumps into commitments she's not prepared for, overestimates her readiness, and underestimates the sacrifices required for success. A woman who lacks wisdom in decision-making is easily influenced by external voices. She allows society, peer pressure, and emotions to dictate her choices instead of standing firm on values and principles. She does not take time to seek understanding, research, or gain knowledge before making important life choices. As a result, her decisions lead to unnecessary struggles, lost opportunities, and a life that falls short of its true potential. A woman who disrespects authority and rejects wise counsel positions herself for unnecessary struggles. She believes that submission to wisdom is a sign of weakness when in reality it is the foundation of strength. Instead of seeking guidance from those with experience, she assumes she knows best and disregards the voices that could save her from avoidable mistakes. She sees correction as an attack rather than an opportunity to grow. When mentors, elders, or even close friends try to offer direction, she responds with arrogance, dismissing their words as irrelevant or outdated. This mindset leads to repeated failures because she refuses to learn from those who have walked the path before her. She resents leadership, challenges authority for the sake of pride, and rebels against structure. In the workplace, she struggles with discipline, unable to submit to those in higher positions, making her career progression difficult. In relationships, she ignores advice from those who see the dangers she refuses to acknowledge. Even when signs are clear, she chooses defiance over wisdom, believing that doing things her own way is a mark of independence. Her resistance to counsel extends to spiritual, financial, and personal matters. She refuses to take financial advice, convinced that she can manage without planning or budgeting. She disregards moral guidance, justifying actions that lead to self-destruction. Even when faced with failure, she blames circumstances instead of recognizing her own unwillingness to listen. A woman who refuses counsel often finds herself isolated because those who once tried to help eventually step back, realizing she is not ready to receive wisdom. Instead of building a life on knowledge and instruction, she builds on pride, which eventually leads to a downfall that could have been avoided with humility and a teachable spirit. A woman who is drawn to toxic relationships often mistakes dysfunction for love. She finds herself repeatedly choosing partners who drain her emotionally, disrespect her worth, and hinder her growth. She ignores the warning signs, believing that love should be fought for, even at the cost of her own well-being. She confuses attachment with commitment and assumes that enduring pain is proof of loyalty. Instead of walking away from relationships that break her, she holds on, convinced that with enough effort, things will change. She is drawn to partners who manipulate, control, or belittle her, yet she justifies their actions out of fear of being alone. She mistakes possessiveness for care, mistreatment for passion, and inconsistency for excitement. When friends and family warn her about the toxic nature of her relationship, she becomes defensive, believing that they do not understand. She isolates herself from those who truly care, choosing instead to cling to someone who repeatedly hurts her. Her pattern of toxic relationships is often rooted in unresolved wounds. She may have grown up witnessing unhealthy dynamics, making dysfunction feel familiar. She may struggle with self-worth, believing she does not deserve better. She tolerates lies, disrespect, and emotional neglect because she has conditioned herself to accept less than she is worth. Even when she recognizes the toxicity, she hesitates to leave, fearing that she will not find love elsewhere. Over time, these relationships take a toll on her self-esteem, her mental health, and her future. She loses pieces of herself trying to fix what was never meant to be whole. She stays in cycles that drain her rather than uplift her. And instead of seeking partners who bring peace, she gravitates toward chaos. She repeats the same painful patterns, not realizing that true love should heal, not harm. A woman who neglects self-development, limits her own potential, and settles for a life far below what she is capable of achieving. She becomes comfortable with mediocrity, failing to invest in the growth of her mind, skills, and character. Instead of seeking knowledge, she prioritizes entertainment. Instead of working on her talents, she wastes time on distractions that add no value to her future. She does not read, does not learn, and does not challenge herself to become better. She desires success, yet she refuses to prepare for it. She makes excuses for her lack of progress, blaming circumstances, people, or even luck, rather than taking responsibility for her own development. When opportunities arise, she is unprepared because she has not taken the time to sharpen her abilities. She watches others move forward while she remains stuck, wondering why doors do not open for her. She complains about the success of others, but does not realize that success follows those who are willing to grow. Her neglect of self-development affects every area of her life. In relationships, she depends entirely on others for emotional and financial support because she has not built anything for herself. In the workplace, she remains in the same position for years because she refuses to learn new skills or improve her performance. She is easily replaced because she has not made herself valuable. Even in her personal life, she lacks discipline, struggling to stay consistent in anything that requires effort and dedication. Over time, she begins to feel unfulfilled, sensing that she is capable of more but unsure of how to reach it. The world moves forward, but she remains stagnant, watching as others achieve what she once dreamed of. She lives in frustration, not realizing that her greatest limitation is her unwillingness to grow. A woman consumed by gossip and negativity creates an environment of destruction around her, often without realizing that she is the source. She spends her time discussing the lives of others, finding faults, and spreading rumors instead of focusing on her own growth. She thrives on drama, constantly looking for the next story to tell, the next flaw to expose, or the next person to criticize. Instead of using her words to uplift, encourage, and inspire, she uses them to tear down, belittle, and divide. She finds satisfaction in the failures of others, feeling a sense of superiority when someone else falls. Rather than celebrating success, she dismisses it with jealousy, assuming that others must have had an unfair advantage. She spreads negativity wherever she goes, always finding something to complain about. Nothing is ever good enough, and no one is ever doing things the right way in her eyes. She is quick to judge, slow to understand, and completely blind to her own flaws. Her negativity affects not just her relationships, but her entire life. People begin to distance themselves from her, realizing that her presence brings toxicity rather than peace. She loses opportunities because no one trusts a woman who cannot control her tongue. Employers hesitate to promote her, friends hesitate to confide in her, and wise people avoid her altogether. She wonders why she's often left out, not realizing that her own words have built the walls that separate her from others. Her mind becomes a breeding ground for bitterness. Instead of finding solutions, she finds problems. Instead of seeking wisdom, she seeks gossip. Her constant focus on the flaws of others blinds her to her own potential, keeping her trapped in a cycle of small thinking, wasted time, and unrealized dreams. A woman who is financially irresponsible places herself in a cycle of struggle, constantly living from crisis to crisis with no stability or security. She spends impulsively, prioritizing short-term pleasure over long-term security. She buys things she does not need, borrows money without a plan to repay it, and lives beyond her means, believing that appearances matter more than financial wisdom. She ignores the importance of budgeting, saving, and investing, choosing instead to live for the moment without considering the future consequences of her actions. When faced with financial difficulties, she blames circumstances rather than taking responsibility for her choices. Instead of adjusting her spending habits, she continues to repeat the same mistakes, relying on credit cards, loans, or the generosity of others to sustain a lifestyle she cannot afford. She does not take the time to educate herself about financial management, dismissing it as something too complicated or unnecessary. She sees wealth as something only accessible to the lucky or privileged, failing to realize that discipline and wisdom play a greater role in financial success than mere luck. Her lack of financial discipline affects every area of her life. She struggles with constant stress, worrying about how to pay bills, cover emergencies, or plan for the future. She becomes dependent on others for financial support, losing her independence and control over her own life. In relationships, financial irresponsibility leads to conflict, as money problems create tension and instability. She misses out on opportunities because she has not positioned herself to take advantage of them. Over time, she finds herself trapped in a cycle of debt, regret, and frustration. She envies those who have financial freedom, but refuses to adopt the habits that create it. She remains stuck in a pattern of poor choices, never realizing that financial security is not about how much money she has, but how wisely she manages what she earns. A woman without purpose and vision drifts through life, moving wherever circumstances take her instead of directing her own path. She wakes up each day without a clear goal, simply existing rather than living with intention. She does not take the time to discover her strengths, passions, or calling, leaving her unfulfilled and frustrated. Instead of creating a plan for her future, she reacts to whatever happens, never taking full control of her destiny. She may have dreams, but without action, they remain nothing more than distant wishes. She allows others to define her direction, following trends, societal expectations, or the opinions of friends and family instead of seeking her own path. She jumps from one thing to another, constantly changing her mind but never making real progress. She lacks consistency, starting projects she never finishes, entering commitments she does not sustain, and wasting time on things that do not bring lasting fulfillment. She sees others achieving great things but assumes they are just lucky, failing to realize that vision and purpose require discipline, sacrifice, and determination. Her lack of purpose affects every area of her life. In relationships, she settles for less than she deserves because she has no standard or clear vision of what she wants. In her career, she drifts from job to job, never building expertise or financial stability. She watches as years pass by, filled with regret over wasted time. Yet she continues to make the same choices that keep her stagnant. She may feel moments of motivation, but quickly falls back into old patterns because she lacks direction. Over time, she becomes frustrated with herself, wondering why life feels empty and unfulfilling. She desires change but does not take the steps necessary to achieve it. She remains stuck in a cycle of confusion and dissatisfaction, never realizing that purpose is not something that appears by chance, but something that must be discovered, cultivated, and pursued with dedication. A woman's life is shaped by the choices she makes, the wisdom she embraces, and the vision she pursues. Foolishness is not a lack of intelligence, but a refusal to grow, learn, and change. A woman who repeatedly ignores wisdom, disrespects counsel, entertains toxic relationships, neglects self-development, indulges in gossip, mismanages finances, and drifts without purpose is not a victim of fetish, is a victim of her own decisions. But the good news is that transformation is always possible. No woman is destined to remain in cycles of failure and regret. The moment she decides to walk in wisdom, value herself, and take control of her life, everything begins to shift. Growth requires discipline, change demands sacrifice, and success follows those who are intentional about their future. A wise woman does not wait for life to hand her opportunity as she prepares for them. She does not settle for mediocrity. She strives for excellence. The world does not need more women who live without direction, compromise their worth, and repeat the mistakes of the past. The world needs women who rise with purpose, walk with wisdom, and inspire generations. The choice is simple: continue in foolishness or step into greatness. Your future is in your hands. What will you choose?